across,
most
osmosis is across a membrane, a semi-permeable membrane. We're talking about diffusion. Yes, this is first week of biology. Yes, it is.
yeah, yeah. So you saying like why does that thing happen?
Yes.
It
Is there
doesn't have to
consciousness
do
involved?
with diffusion.
Yes. Is there consciousness in diffusion?
Seemingly not from our perspective. Seemingly not. It's not
Oh,
involved.
so matter could move with something that looks like intentionality and not be conscious, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying that you
Okay.
can have matter
Okay.
moving without uh an experiencer. So you can
How
have
do
the
how do you
subject
know that?
without the experiencer.
How do you know that matter is not experiencing its own movement?
I mean, it could be the case like all matter things have an experiencer, but I'm saying like obviously like, we can't test that. Like it could be the case, for example, that the moon has a moon experiencer, but we can't detect that. But like that's not really what I'm talking about. Like that could be the case, but we don't know.
So then, at what point do we label something conscious or not conscious?
Uh, I mean, okay, so all what it means for the most part is conscious. You have first person experience, you have qualia. Um,
So does amoeba have qualia?
but I don't believe.
King Mo
Yeah, I
style,
don't believe that we can.
Emperor Haile I Selassie the first, King of kings and the lords of lords, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, elect of Jah, the light of this world, ever living God, conquering lion, ruling all the universe. Righteousness, keep on walking in a righteousness. God would you bless, no man curse. And Jah will guide you along the way. Me hygiene. You hear what the man say? And Jah will guide you along the way. Rastafari will guide you, me hygiene. Walk in a righteousness, me hygiene. Say walk in a righteous.
Way it formed with everything being a philosophical zombie, or it's not possible the universe could have went down that route. And I'm just trying to understand like which one's possible, like which one's the case, because that's a true dichotomy.
But isn't
Bro,
both?
they could both be the case.
Yes, that's the thing.
There could
Yeah,
be
you know,
human
no,
beings
okay,
that literally don't have personal experience. Like, I'm being
no,
dead ass
I'm
right
talking
now.
everything. No, I'm talking about
Not
everything.
every.
I'm saying, yeah,
Are
but I'm
you
saying like,
personally experiencing right now? Like, are you? Do
okay,
you have a
hold on,
mind?
yeah, so out of everyone in this VC, that someone is conscious. So from your perspective, maybe I'm not conscious, but someone in this VC is absolutely conscious.
Did you steal
Now,
this
maybe from your
argument
perspective,
from a
yeah.
philosophical zombie?
No, like what I'm saying is like I'm trying to understand whether or not. So you have reality A is exactly like this reality, but everything is a philosophical zombie. So there's no first person experiences. Reality B is this reality where like I'm conscious, you're conscious, presumably, and I'm trying to understand: is it possible that the universe could have formed reality B, where everything's a philosophical zombie? Everything looks the same, but there's no first person experiences. We're all just like meat robots. That's what I'm trying to determine. And if that is possible, I'm trying to understand why did
No,
that not happen?
the Christian worldview is the truth.
Well, I mean that's just like is an assertion. I can just assert the belief I used to have about God is true. So I'm not just trying to hear assertions. Like I'm trying to understand
Let me ask you this: do you think that you're a philosophical zombie?
if I'm. That question doesn't make any sense. If someone is able to think, then by definition they're not a philosophical zombie. So if I'm able to think,
Philosophical zombies. Philosophical zombies still make decisions. Like
yeah,
there's still
no,
like
no. So
internal
no,
things going on inside their brain that cause them to make
Right,
decisions
right, right,
and
right, right.
profess
The,
belief
the the
about things.
philosophical zombie is the same. Think of it as like it's an AI just copy of like you, an android copy of you yourself.
yeah, it's like
It has all the
NPC.
appearances, it has characteristics of human beings. But you can't tell. It's like this. It still appears and probably is like you because it's like this. Here we go. The hard problem consciousness. That's another thing.
Well, they don't
All
have
right.
they don't have
In this
thoughts.
case,
They don't,
we
they don't have thoughts. They're like NPCs basically.
but
It's
if
like
they but yeah yeah but if they appear and do all what is demonstrated to being like someone like you, okay, irrespective, like who's to tell the difference if no one knows the difference that thing
no, okay,
that
yeah.
philosophical
Well,
zombie to you. You
okay,
understand what I'm saying?
well, hold
That's the
on.
whole point with philosophical zombie.
Okay,
I'm
so
just
what?
asking this young lad here,
You
like,
can't
does
tell
he
the
think that
difference. You can't tell
Yeah,
the
well, I'm
difference.
telling you. No,
Philosophical
no,
zombie,
okay,
you can't.
no. Oh, wait, hold on. So what I'm saying is that the way that they're defined is that they don't have first person experiences. So if anything is having those, then by definition, they're not a philosophical zombie. Now, you can't tell if something else is a philosophical zombie, but if you're having first person experiences, that rules you out. You're not that by definition.
are you
Now, from
having
my
first person
perspective,
experiences right now?
yeah, but to you, that's just anecdotal. That's just like words from your perspective.
By God, it's Keeper Green.
It's the heat, nigga. Deadly combination.
Say your prayers.
Which led it to like land on 6, then I'll consider that like a supernatural happening. Like it did what it did. I mean, that's not a good case.
Do you consider
more-
like a half-court buzzer beater a supernatural event?
What do you mean? Like if something happens without any cause, I'll consider that supernatural.
No, I mean like literally someone just lobbing a basketball at half court. Is that supernatural when they make that and win the game?
So in half court, no, like, there's explanations for that. Like there's like concrete whys why that happens. So I wouldn't consider that supernatural. Because there's the
So
strength, there's the
you're
wind, there's the
invoking
gravity.
you're invoking the supernatural only
No, I'm
where
not
we have a gap. But listen, you're invoking the supernatural only when we have a gap in knowledge.
No, so I'm defining what I mean by supernatural. So how I'm defining it is if it happens, if an event occurs without an objective why. That's how I'm defining it. So there's objective,
We don't have
no
we
why
don't have an
behind it.
objective why for like a lot of things that happen in real life. But we
Well-
know that they're not like supernatural. Like even like theists
If an
don't think
event directly, well, maybe I can use like another word because supernatural is like tied to other things, but I'll consider that like I'll consider that like a supernatural
extraordinary?
event. I mean, maybe I should find like another word because I don't want it to be associated with something else. Because I'm not invoking like God at all or anything like that.
When you use the word supernatural, it invokes a cause that's like outside the laws of physics. The unknown and known laws of physics.
Okay, well, I mean, I mean, okay, so if I were to give it a word, I would say like a what the fuck force, because I don't know what else to give it, because it's not like, it's like literally like what the fuck. So either it has like a why behind it, or there's no why. Like for example,
But there's so
if
many what
a
the fucks though. Like,
is like on the table and it just shifts off and falls on the floor without any explanation at all, we would all consider that supernatural. If it objectively doesn't have an explanation, that would fit the description of being supernatural. So I'm saying
bro,
like,
there's going to be things that happen in your life and what you learn maybe about your parents or your grandparents or aunts and uncles, and you're going to have zero explanation for certain things that happen in your personal life, and you're never going to learn them until the day you die. Literally, like, you'll never learn about them.
yeah.
So just
So
because you don't
okay,
know about something doesn't mean that there's some other external outside force outside of the universe that's acting upon it.
yeah, I just want to say a quick thing that I've heard someone explain is like, so if the universe could result in like either way, some people, now I'm not positing like a god or anything like that, but that's where some people would, and they would believe that it was God, for example, that pushed the chess piece in this direction as opposed to the other direction, that there's intention behind it and it moved it in this reality. Now, if you don't invoke God, it seems like you don't have an explanation. It just happened without any why behind it. And I'm like, that's incoherent because we have no evidence of that happening. Like, there's no
What do you think?
evidence.
What do you think the last
That-
man standing is going to think, though? Like, do you think they're going to posit God in the progression of the human odyssey? Or do you think, like, wow, like, fuck, we were really naturalistic beings, and like we're
Because I'm
ended
talking
now.
about things happening without a cause.
But no, you're not talking about things that don't happen without a cause.
Without a cause.
That happen without a cause.
But we do.
You're talking about things that you don't know the cause for.
Well,
That's all you're
I'm
talking
saying
about.
like,
So
okay,
we're both
yeah,
equally ignorant on this subject, but you're invoking like an external, extra universal source for it. You know, it's like outside the universe, but it's acting within our universe. While
like that force
like
or
me,
that.
someone like me who's like a skeptic, like we would say like we don't know the explanation, but like that's it. Like we just don't know. And
Yeah,
that's
well,
it.
we can say that there is a force or some subject. Now we can call that X. Now then, now we've created like a chain now, because now
Why would you want to say I don't know? That's stupid.
and now either that chain is either going to be infinite or a finite, and then this goes into like the second problem, which is the infinite regression problem.
Whenever someone
The
says
reason
I don't know on You Can't Do That on Television, they get slimed.
The reason why I said I
Well,
don't know is because the discussion is mainly about like what was the prime mover in the evolution of the universe that caused things to be conscious. Like there could have been
Yeah.
life with consciousness or not.
Yeah,
And if-
it could be some natural explanation, and we can just call it Y, and that's fine. We can just say it's Y. Now, either, like that's now a chain that we've built. Now either that chain is going to be infinite, is going to be finite, and there's many issues with like an infinite chain.
But there could very well be like absolutely no prime mover that influenced consciousness, like just a naturalistic event that happened.
Yeah, but
We
Yeah,
could be talking
there's
about like
problems with
a non sequester, like there could be nothing that we're even talking about right now. It's just an idea, like that there was something after the Big Bang that caused consciousness. That's what your idea is asserting. I could just assert that life results in consciousness, and there was no prime mover in the formation of species where there was like an instance where if it was 1 degree different or whatever different, then we would have nothing but philosophical zombie life forms that weren't aware. I don't buy that. And what you're asserting is merely like a theory.
Well, something follows from that. So if you say, for example, like life results in consciousness. It doesn't really matter because, like, I'm saying, either it is the case that the universe could have resulted in the world filled with philosophical zombies, or that is not the case. And if it is not the case, meaning like life is inevitable, then it's like, is there like an explanation for that? Like why the alternative is impossible? And I obviously it's going to be yes or no. So like, there's like a few questions I have with that. Like the other scenario, like is that possible or is it impossible? So that's like the first question.
Well,
And
it's just like old buddy in here earlier. He was talking about diffusion and stuff. All that biology is chemistry. Like that's why you learn about basic like chemical
but
things like functions that happen.
But how does that relate to what I'm talking about though? Because I'm talking about the
Because
universe.
we're talking about life, bro. We're literally talking about life.
No, I'm not talking about life. I'm talking about something beyond life. I'm talking about first-person experiences.
That has to do with life.
Yeah,
so,
but the question
you know,
I
when
have
you get,
is like,
I hate to interrupt, but like, have you ever been hit in the head before, really hard?
Yeah, I think at some point, probably many years ago, I'm guessing.
Dude, I know someone that has gotten 9 concussions in football.
I never got a concussion.
He's dumb as a rock. I know people that have gotten part of their brains cut out because they've had strokes. Okay? They literally lose their equilibrium. They lose certain control over bodily functions, emotions, and just different things. There's people, like, there's certain parts of the brain where you remove them. Like, people will forget how to play instruments, how to drive a car, how to basically do, like, things of that nature, like motor skills and stuff. We can basically deduce, just as people who believe in naturalism, that all of our thoughts reside in the brain. I mean, like, you don't get shot anywhere else and you instantaneously die. It's always the brain. You're never going to get shot in the hand and forget anything. You're never going to get shot in the foot and forget anything. It's always the brain. So, like, everything that we experience is, like, in the brain. Do you agree with that?
I lack belief that that's true. It could be the case, but I currently lack belief that it's true, and I lack belief it's false.
Well, I hate to go this route, bro, but if you've ever had experience with like mentally retarded people, and you know what's wrong with them in their brain.
Well, don't use the word mentally retarded. Just say like mentally handicapped. So yeah, I've experienced people who are mentally handicapped.
Okay, so like it's nothing wrong with their hands. It's nothing wrong with their feet. It's nothing wrong with their heart or their organs, like besides their brain. But it's always the brain. Like the brain is where you have your intellect and your bodily functions. People missing certain parts of the brain, they can't control their bowels. They can't control their emotions. They can't control their motor movements.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an analogy with this. So let's say, for example, you have like I mean, it's like a new era now. So you have like a CD player. Is it possible to have a CD player that's in perfect condition, but the CD player is damaged? So the CD player is playing yik, 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 and it's just messed up, but the CD itself is completely fine. Is that possible?
See, you can't. Like, I agree. Like, it's possible, but you can't like analogize or put to metaphor the brain and neurology.
Because I'm saying that could be the case.
Sort of
so the brain could be like a receiver. Currently, we don't know, but the brain itself could be a receiver, and it could be like the soul, or we have like an immaterial part, and we damage the body. You affect the output of it. You're not affecting the thing itself. You're just affecting the output.
All that type of line of thought is, it's like a God of the gaps argument, because if you look at ancient religions, they all really thought. Yeah, it is, because if you look at ancient religions, listen, if you look at ancient religions, they'll say like, who can know the heart? It's deceitful above all things. Like, do we really think with the heart? There was ancient Greek philosophers, Roman philosophers, Christian philosophers, Muslim philosophers, Judaic philosophers.
Well, okay, what are you appealing to? What's your point? Are you appealing to something that's established within moral realism, like ethics, virtue ethics, or what are you trying to get
No.
into?
So okay, yeah. Well, what we're talking about here is he believes like consciousness comes from the brain, and I'm saying like I like to believe that's true because it could be that the brain is like a receiver. So the reason why people like this because the transmitter has been affected, just like a CD player and a CD. You could damage a CD player, but the CD is fine. But obviously, it's going to be playing badly. But
But you
something
have no
consciousness could be like
evidence.
that.
You have no
Yeah.
evidence
Well,
that the brain
I'm
is
not
a
making the
receiver,
claim.
though.
Well,
You
I'm not
are
making the claim.
you are
So,
sitting there and
okay.
you're making the claim that the brain is a receiver.
No.
Like we can't
So
just
I'm not making the
presuppose or
claim.
even bring into argumentation that the
No.
brain is a
So
receiver.
yeah. So I'm not making the claim. However, if you have like candidate explanations, then it follows that is not contradictory in a sense as a possibility. Now, that's why I said
But
I
what makes
lack
it a
belief.
possibility?
Okay, it's not a contradiction, which means that it's logically possible. That doesn't mean it's true.
But it's not logically possible in your initial point because you're just saying like the brain is a receiver from an external source. Where's your
I'm not
evidence?
saying it is.
What about-
Because
so
yeah,
I'm not,
you are because
What
if you're
about
gonna
I'm not
when,
saying it is.
if you're going to claim that it's logically possible, it needs to be logically possible from the very beginning, and it's not.
Yeah. So
Like you have no
so-
evidence for that.
You're saying
Okay,
that
so,
like when
okay.
people get brain damage, they like lose like functions like intellectual or mind related functions.
Yeah.
But I've also read stories of people like a kid, he's playing soccer, so he's probably like an atheist because like no manly Christian would play soccer, right? And like he got kicked in the head, and all of a sudden he could speak Spanish fluently. So like there's an instance where brain damage actually like gave this guy a skill that he didn't even have before. Like how does that make any sense?
That's
from
that's
a
that's
materialistic
literally like
perspective?
that is a 100% bullshit story. Like you have
It's
absolutely no
not a-
proof for that whatsoever.
I do have proof for that.
Send the proof into the voice chat
Well,
text or whatever.
Basis.
Because there's no way that some kid got kicked in the head and was able to speak fluent Spanish. It's just a story. Like you're just reading a story online and you're like, oh yeah, that was true. It's just like it's such
Okay.
bullshit.
It's not
Okay, so
bullshit.
I need to say a quick. So, hold
Yeah,
on,
it
so
is,
I need
it's
to say a
bullshit.
quick. I need to say a quick thing. So with the other thing, what I'm saying is like,
Well, you gotta,
okay,
you
so,
gotta
for
learn
example,
something
wait, hold
around
on.
here, basis. When I say something, that is evidence. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so-
not, it's
yeah,
not,
so let me say a
I'm
quick
not a
thing.
bullshitter like you, right? And another thing,
Yeah, no,
you
so-
probably don't even understand how the Enlightenment gave you this like fucking materialistic bias that you have. You're a fucking retard. Now I'll unmute
wait,
you.
hold on.
There was
Wait,
materialistic people for thousands of years, literally.
yeah.
you look
So I
into
need to
it.
go back.
You fucking
I need to go
retard.
back into like the thing you said.
You really
before.
think like a kid got hit in the head and learned Spanish? Like that's the type of shit that you fucking believe. That's
So hold
stupid.
on. So I need to say the thing you said, because you said something. So let's say we're in the era before we have like technology, telescope and so forth, and someone talks about like a star, and they talk about like a theory of like a black hole, but there's no technology. So it could be the case that even without evidence of a black hole, it could just be that his theory just happens to be true. So you don't need evidence for the thing to be true. You need to be convinced, but you don't need it to be true. You get me? The truth is not predicated on you having evidence of it. That's what I'm saying.
So what's more likely? And I agree that people have hypothesized things without evidence, and it ended up being true. Sometimes it's just like luck, or they were looking at rudimentary sort of so-called evidence. But the likelihood, the standard of likelihood that's happening here, but that
so
sort of
have you ever
phenomenon
heard
that's
of
happening.
no before
Hold up a second.
Hey, let me finish. Yeah.
What's happening more likely with instances like that is that people are hypothesizing things that end up being wrong, literally like 99% of the time. So when someone does do it and they're correct, you know,
But
it's not necessarily luck. It's
Yeah,
not
but
necessarily
the point.
luck. Oh yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
wrong.
but the
I
point.
just
Yeah,
posted
hold on.
the article
Wait,
about the guy who got hit in the head and then he could speak Spanish. So you're wrong about that.
Where?
It's called
In the
foreign
guest text and
accent
IDM'd it to you.
syndrome. It's called foreign accent syndrome. Even there's moments even with people with like this is not uncommon. Now it could be a rarity where someone displays like
Yeah.
sort of being like knowing like let's just say with fluid like to speak a foreign language fluidly. But
But the person
there
who
are
studied
cases
it,
where
though.
people there are cases no this FAF foreign accent syndrome. There's even a case of it. A case of it in Ireland, in particular, where people speak in a different accent altogether, and they can't stop it. It's part of their like personality now. They can't work it out because of them waking up from a stroke or a brain injury. This is not uncommon. You know, it's not so uncommon to the point that it's like this is just pulling out people's arse. There's actually some
Did he
studies to verify
Did
it.
he access to language education before?
I don't know what he's talking about in particular, but I'm thinking of FAS syndrome. That's what's popped into my head.
But those people,
I'm trying.
they're not
Dude,
speaking
on
that
this
language. They've never.
article, there's literally no evidence on this article that it's true. What's actually more likely is that it's a lie. And this is just something that someone like anti-intellectualism wouldn't consider.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Okay. There's people who are like an atheist, for example, and they have like a piece of like the brain removed or something like that, and they became like a theist. Like you have things like that where their whole perspective completely changes. But you're
Yeah.
talking about new information. I don't know.
But you're just hand wave dismissal saying it's a lie based on what your conjecture. Like you're full of shit.
It's not
Yeah.
conjecture. You're
It
literally
is
reading a
conjecture.
story.
You've been sitting here bullshitting us for the last like 20 minutes or whatever, and I'm just saying that you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. And you're like,
That's not an argument, bro. You're literally sitting here posting a story with absolutely zero evidence whatsoever, no links to any of the doctors, no studies, no brain scans, like literally nothing.
Anyone who disagrees
And-
with
Okay,
him
look.
has zero evidence.
Okay,
Claiming that-
hold on.
Like,
We're
you're really
digressing a
gonna
bit.
die
Look,
on a
fake
fucking
world.
random article.
No, we're digressing a bit
You're
because
fake.
What's more
like the
likely
point.
is that this article is just lying, and the fact that
Or,
you won't
or
even
you're just a
consider
fake,
that.
dishonest interlocutor. That's probably the most likely scenario.
No, I mean you can
Mhm.
see like in your tone, in your attitude, in the words that you're speaking right now, like you're not really serious. Like you can't seriously believe that this is a true story. This isn't even like a reputable website at all. This isn't like Time it's like time.com. What the fuck is that? At the bottom of the page there's zero sources. There's zero like links to anything. There's no hyperlinks in the article at all.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so
You
I
just
can
sit
bring
there
you
and
some.
believe that, like you would believe fucking anything, bro. Honestly.
Okay, look, I think we're derailing a bit. I can find sources, but the question is, what I'm saying is like, it could be the case that the brain's like a transmitter, but I'm saying like, there's no way to test that. That's what I'm saying. So, you believe consciousness comes from the brain, and I'm saying like,
Wait 1 second. Can we put someone in like a gas chamber or something like that? Shut off all forms of radiation coming to them from the outside and see if they will just flop like a marionette with cut strings? That might be a good
well,
experiment.
we talking about?
A gas
I'm
chamber.
talking.
You put a chamber that
When
doesn't
I say
allow any radiation from the outside to come in. That might be interesting
okay,
to
when I
try.
say okay, yeah, hold on. When I say transmitter, I'm not talking about like electronic transmitter. I'm talking about like a spiritual transmitter. I'm saying like the brain could be a transmitter in that sense.
So
It doesn't mean
what
like
would the signal be? What would can you tell us like what this signal would potentially be? Like what form would it take?
yeah, it could be a form that's not detectable by by material in this universe. So it could be some spiritual form or something like that, some non-material way that we cannot detect.
And then how would you know it exists?
Okay, so this is not about us knowing
Oh,
it's the
okay,
case or me
okay.
demonstrating it. Yes, I'm not demonstrating this true. I'm saying that it could be the case that it's true, and I'm saying that if someone's saying like it is possible, it's not, or it is the case, it's not the case, they can't just assert that. They have to give an argument. With no argument, it stands as just as likely. So if you're saying like that's not the case, like you have to give an argument. If I'm saying it is the case, I have to give an argument. If you're saying it's not the case, you have to give an argument. You can't just assert it's not the case. So I'm asking like basically whatever his name, like does he have an argument for why that's not true? Yeah, so I'm trying to ask the person, like, does he have an argument for why it's not the case?
Yeah, see, there's massive compilations of CNN literally saying that, like, fact-checked lies. They'll post anything for headlines. I follow CNN on Facebook and Twitter and Fox News as well.
Fox and CNN are.
That doesn't give it any valid. That doesn't give it any valid truth claim whatsoever.
They're not confirming anything. They're just reporting the shit.
Yeah, they're reporting the story that's been told. If you
CNN
think
and
that,
Fox don't report.
listen,
They're not
listen,
journalistic. They're pundit.
anti-intellectualism. Do you believe that Fox News and CNN have both reported on multiple religions before?
They don't report. They give commentary. They're pundits.
Hello,
Pundit
anti-intellectualism. Do you think that CNN and Fox News have both reported on multiple religions before, and what those religions believe? Okay, I'll just answer it for you. Since
Hold
much
up.
of a fucking pussy.
Literally in the
yes.
CNN article,
They
the
have
CNN
both
article says
reported.
he already spoke Spanish before he went into the coma.
I'm not a pussy. He didn't speak it fluently though. I'm not a pussy. I'm a Christian.
Stupid.
Can we leave Pimas alone, please?
You
Can we
literally
leave Pimas alone?
you worship a dead virgin.
Anyone who isn't a Christian is a pussy.
No, anyone who is actually a pussy.
No.
But besides the point.
Let's end the ad hominem.
Listen, I'm gonna say this too. God's gonna strike you down with stroke syndrome, and the more or less it will be this. You'll be speaking in a foreign accent, man. So help me, I tell you. You learn from it. You know, you gotta have some humility. You know, you gotta have a bit of humbleness. All right.
Yeah,
Next step,
right.
man.
Semper's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, if
humble.
CNN and Fox News are both reporting on multiple religions, just telling you what these religions believe, and I'm sure there's an article in all of them talking about Islam or Judaism or Christianity or Hinduism or Mormonism about just what these people believe.
Basis.
It doesn't make it true that just because both of them are reporting on a story, and the story, the fact that it is a story is true. Just the fact that they're reporting it doesn't.
Okay,
doesn't
dude. I proved you wrong. Move on. Whatever. We've all seen.
Basis.
That you're wrong.
Basis,
So
do you
just
need me
move
to call the
on.
hospital? Wait, hold on. Basis, do you need me to
Fuck's sake.
call the hospital and record the conversation to confirm the story?
When's the
would
last
that be evidence
time?
for you? If
When's the last time?
I don't know. What do you want?
When's the last
Do you
time
want to
admitted
call
you
the
were-
hospital?
Yeah, call the hospital.
Wait, hold on.
When's the last time-
So hold on. Wait. Hold on. Just call. Yeah.
He was in the coma.
You
Hold on.
don't
Yeah,
even
well,
you don't even need to call the hospital.
He knew some Spanish.
Basis, when is the last time you admitted to being wrong about something?
Accountability Act has it so to where all health records are literally recorded forever. Literally, they're
Have you ever
on.
been wrong in your life?
You can't access anybody's medical records though. That's against HIPAA laws.
No, I'm not saying anyone can access it, but I'm saying that it can be requested by the family or
Have
or
you
the
ever
patient
been wrong in
or
your
the
entire
resident.
life?
Yeah, it could be
Basis?
requested by the
You're
patient.
not
and
addressing the
Are
argument.
you a perfect being?
Basis.
You've never been
it could be
wrong.
requested by the
As soon as
patient,
anything
or-
happens in a hospital,
or if the patient signs off on
This
it,
guy
the
is so
family and
crazy,
third
dude.
party.
if a patient wants to be
Not
turned
any,
over,
but not
I
if
never meet someone this crazy in
if a
real life.
patient wants,
basis.
like, a
I don't know what
different
you're talking
snack,
about. Listen.
if a patient wants to be turned over in their bed, or they want a different snack,
Mhm.
or you have to put an IV, an entire incident report has to be filled out by nurses.
Yeah, and that's all within the hospital that you're being treated in. You know that those reports
Exactly.
and those records aren't released to anyone unless you sign 3 or 4 documents that okay the release to other doctors or family members.
And the family members or the patient or resident themselves can request those documents and
No,
release them
not unless the
to the public.
patient. No. So during triage, when you're signed in, you have to sign documents that explicitly say, I okay or I give you permission to release my medical records to another healthcare provider, should they request them, or family members. If you don't sign those papers, nobody can access. And even if you do sign those papers, non-family members and doctors or healthcare providers that aren't involved with that line of treatment still can't access your medical records.
Okay, so
It's
they have to
obvious
confirm
that
themselves
he's
that they
just
signed
denying
certain
this
documents
evidence
saying
because it
they
goes
couldn't
against
access the
his
health care after the
preconceived
fact.
notions of
But the fact that they're literally saying
mind-body
afterwards
dilemma.
this stuff happened and there's no corroborating evidence from any medical doctors. You know, there's a documentary called
Jesus,
Send
he's using
Proof by the
evidence like a
Charismatic
buzzword,
Movement,
right?
where they're literally bringing out all these supposed pieces of evidence of miracles happening. And bro, you literally cannot. You're intellectually incapable of having an actual debate.
I am
You don't listen.
anti-intellectual.
It's very childish of you. You're probably like 16 years old. It's okay. But just for everyone else here, there's literally a Christian
I'm an
documentary.
anti-intellectual.
And they are asking for medical documents for people who think that they have experienced miracles of healing. So if this guy actually experienced some phenomena of medical science or otherwise, it would be released to the public. We would see incident reports. We would see like actual documentation from doctors saying like this kid was speaking Spanish. Like we brought in a fluent Spanish speaking nurse or doctor or janitor or whoever or translator, and like this kid literally knew how to speak it. But this article isn't providing fucking shit. And you guys literally sit here and believe it because you want to think that the brain is some fucking like radio.
Right. I mean,
I want to give the
there
nuance.
are.
I'm going to give a nuance particular. The thing
Like,
you're
you would believe
neglecting,
fucking anything.
the thing you're neglecting, whether the mind works, how we understand it. There's a lot of like phenomena that occurs, but what we do know, it retains certain amount of information, like writing, and learned, and sort of like behavior, and let's just say like how you study, you collect some information. Now it always recedes in background. It's like me speaking to you, like, okay, you studied Spanish or you studied like French or German. Are you going to remember it like wholeheartedly? Probably not. You're probably going to remember, hello, my name is this, je m'appelle Boz, you know, and then you'll just say your age and whatever. But what this is trying to do is, this is what's making the claim to some degree, which is like there actually was. I was reading up some other article that mentioned about this woman who's from the UK or whatever. She's British, but actually woke up in the coma speaking fluent in French because during secondary level education, this was like over 30 years ago, she woke up speaking fluent French for about over 2 weeks straight. Now,
So even if we're not invoking a supernatural explanation into it, and I think this story is fucking bullshit because there's absolutely no proof. But let's invoke a natural explanation into it. There is autistic people. There is
okay,
autistic
the
people
form.
that can remember the day and the time and the weather and what they were wearing 30 years ago. Like you can ask them, what were you doing at like 9:50 in 1990, and they will literally tell you. Like they'll tell you all the minute details that transmuted from their eyes into their brain that day because I hate to say it, but their literal autistic brain just remembers that shit. So
I wouldn't say that really is tantamount to what I'm saying, what I'm inferring, because I digress. This comes from trauma, stroke. This is like some sort of like, this is something that is, okay, think of it like this: the foreign accent syndrome is associated. No, okay, there's a rarity. I'm going to give you one thing, all right? Them speaking in a foreign accent, like just speaking a British accent or French accent, okay, that's a rarity in enough. And this is also a rarity. But that does not mean it's impossible. It still occurs. It still happens. Can we at least agree upon this? Because otherwise, man, I find that you're clutching at straws here. Like, because he mentioned about one event there, and I wasn't even looking the same event. I wasn't even trying to look for the guy that woke up speaking Spanish. I looked up an event that occurred, and this showed me this woman that spoke fluently in French. So it's not like
there has to be medical evidence. There has to be medical.
Yeah, the brain is very man, there's a reason why there's a philosophy of the mind. I'm not gonna lie. There's a reason why there's a philosophy of the mind.
Yeah, people. the brain's
It's
damaged. They
not a
have like
fucking
another.
blasphemy of the mind, bro. We're literally talking. Do you have like? Is there?
I know this is a separate topic. I'm saying this like philosophy of mind is a separate issue that talks about metaphysics. We're talking about something that's purely physiological. Yes, I agree. But I'm saying irrespective of that, there's a reason why there's so much like there's a phenomena exploring the biological, physiological like perspective, and there's also an unknown variable exploring that through metaphysics, which I'm saying is still.
It's not.
I
No,
digress.
there's no way you can infer any sort of metaphysical anything into these
Yeah,
stories.
but
The
I'm not trying to
naturalistic,
infer
the
that. I'm trying.
naturalistic
The reason why I
makes
brought up metaphysics, I'm saying it still is fascinating because how we know so little, and
it's
also I'm
not
demonstrating that.
fascinating. Like, things that you
Yeah,
can't prove
that's not
aren't really
contingent.
fascinating
Metaphysics.
at
I
all.
only brought up I wish I didn't bring metaphysics because that's not my argument. To be honest, I don't even need metaphysics to prove you wrong. What the prove you wrong was.
It's not about
It was
proving me
down
wrong.
to.
I'm talking about
Yeah,
prove
but
these
you're
stories
ignorant.
true.
You're
No,
peeing from a place of ignorance. You
it's
are.
not a place of ignorance, bro. You have to prove that
Because
these stories are true. Do you not fucking get that? Like,
He
there's
has a
literally
material.
no
He has a
hyperlink in
material
all-
bias, right? So he's just
It's not a
starting with.
material bias.
He's
You have
starting
a
with the
bias towards
presupposition,
outputting your
right?
story.
And it's like
What you need to do is that you need to gather
it's
evidence. for these
impossible to challenge his presupposition because he's like it's like
There's
Okay.
listen, bro. Listen,
It's
you're
like trying to-
literally
yeah.
making a claim. You're making a claim with absolutely no evidence.
Bowser, I'm going to say induction. We've used induction right now. Do you know what induction is? Now, it may not be deduction, but we're using induction for this case study right now. Okay, so we have seen he has gathered this story, which is this was a teenager that woke up speaking fluent Spanish. Now I can send you something about an article about this woman is speaking in French. Now what we can observe is that we can
No, but
follow
I
up
want
with this
you
theory.
to send medical records and hyperlinks. I want you to send documentation from medical professionals outlining
This is a really you're just this is an
You do-
absurd this is an
You do
absurd
realize
standard.
that would be
This is
patient.
just-
That would be patient confidentiality. I
All-
wouldn't
No,
have
it's
access to
all you
medical.
dude, all you're
you
doing
would-
is
you
you're
wouldn't
create
have access to
dude.
it.
This is
medical
bullshit.
all
All
the
you're
time.
doing is you're
Making-
creating a
you're making
criteria.
a false
You're-
dichotomy here by
you're-
saying
no, you're-
that it's
sir.
confidentiality.
It's not a
People
false
can-
dichotomy.
No,
You're not
you're
using false
creating-
dichotomy really right, to be
Like,
honest.
they've
You're
experienced
creating a
some sort of phenomenon
criteria,
or-
sir. You're
they
creating
really
a
do
criteria.
release
Hello.
medical
What is
documentation,
wrong with
and
this
they'll have
guy?
doctors attest these
About-
Why
things.
don't you listen to
Sign
him?
their-
No,
You
but
fucking
so
wouldn't be
you're-
so
you're-
stupid.
The thing
up
about
and
it is
interview
you can't
and
have
say,
it
like,
both
yeah,
ways.
I
You
witnessed
can't
it.
have it.
Like, I saw it happen.
Bowser, you can't
He's
have it.
creating
Bowser,
a
you can't have a
criteria
vote.
for
You have
You have
evidence
absolutely no evidence for these things.
because your
Like,
criteria.
at all.
Because you're
Jesus Christ. Because your criteria for evidence is like so high that no one could meet your standard. Like no shit.
Dude, it's not high. I'm literally looking
it's
for
absolutely
one
you're
single document.
ridiculous. You're being
it's
like
not-
a flat earther denying
all you
evidence
need
of the
is one
fucking
document.
spherical earth.
All you need
That's
is one
you,
document, bro.
idiots.
Hi,
All you
Kaneki.
need is one fucking document.
Fuck
and
off.
you
Okay, so
can
if I
find one.
wait, hold on. So if I can contact the hospital and like contact the patient and like get like the medical records, like would that suffice for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Oh
all
my
you need
God.
is just like a document, whatever, just annotating saying, yeah, this person spoke.
Yes, that's literally what I've said, and there is nothing like that. There is. I mentioned it
Fluent
before.
like Mandarin
There's a
Chinese.
documentary out of
Yeah.
charismatic Christianity called Send Proof. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Just came out. I
understand.
spent $15 to watch this like 2.5 hour long documentary, and it's literally miracle stories where they legitimately did send.
This is not even
like,
miracles. This isn't for miracles. You're muddying the pot. You're conflating this with miracles.
No,
this
it's not a
this is
conflation
disassociated.
Because someone said earlier that it would be patient confidentiality to gather these records together and release them to the public, and that's complete and utter bullshit. People release medical records to the public all the time to show them supposed miracles or just what's going on.
Not all the time. They don't need to. They don't need to. They don't have to release medical records until they get
I'm not
permission.
saying they have
Why
to.
else?
I'm saying that they can. So when you have these
And
outrageous
why would you even
stories
make
where
that
they're being
assertion? That's not your
posted
argument.
on,
That's
like,
not how you win an
CNN,
argument. That's not a
Fox News,
defeater
or
for what
anything
we're
like
saying.
that,
Do you realize
they're
that
not
still does
providing
not
a
defeat? That
single
does not
shred
defeat
of
what we're saying.
corporate
It
us.
doesn't. Our claim has been consistent. irrespective of what you want it to be, irrespective of how you want to change it, what it is, we haven't moved the goalpost. We haven't done anything. We've stayed consistent to what we are, and we presented
You are
you two
consistently
situations,
what you are consistently
two
doing is that
situations
you
that
are
have occurred,
proliferating
and that is we're talking about.
evidence. That's
Listen,
the magic word is evidence. Like someone asked earlier.
This is
Well,
why I
listen.
stopped. Like, there's no reason to even get evidence because,
Listen.
like, they'll never
How
be
can you listen to
happy
me
with
when
the
you're
evidence.
over talking me, man?
They'll never be
all you
happy with
need
the evidence
is
you provide, right?
Speaking Spanish.
So,
They
like,
recorded
why
that.
even provide evidence to
this
people?
isn't. Like,
If
You
you're
know?
gonna claim that a single incident report is outrageous fucking evidence, then there's no amount of evidence that could convince you of things that would counter your point of view. Look, I mean, like, I'm
Evidence
sure
is
that
gay.
why is there a syndrome? Why is there a syndrome? Why is there a syndrome? I'm going to mute you. I'm going to reach you. Why is there AFS? Why is there a syndrome called AFS? I'm going to mute you for a bit because you've been talking way too much. Why is there a syndrome called
Dude, he's being
accent
ridiculous.
syndrome? FAS. There's a syndrome that has been verified. That is credible. That is a study that has been marked upon. All right. This isn't like just now a theory in the reads. This isn't an abstract. This is consistent. All right. This is a medical underlying condition. You to say, well, I don't agree with this. This follows. This is a caveat, baby, of FAS, foreign accent syndrome. So, what followed? This is an aspect, a subsect of it, which is these people who are speaking a foreign accent can speak in a foreign language too, which are fluent. So it follows through with it. It follows within this closed system. It is not bullshit. C'est la vie. Thanks to be God. We're not wrong about this. You are just coming from a place of ignorance. Look up FAS. Look up what it is, the full subject matter. They will give you some theories. They'll explore you different issues. If you want a whole medical breakdown, we'll send you what foreign accent syndrome is. But I can't understand what is so wrong with this. Like, why is it so controversial?
Also, the world is a sphere. Tell them that too. The world's a sphere. There's evidence for that as well.
There's also instances of people feeling phantom pain, losing limbs, and then feeling as if sensations as if it's still there. And this to me is something that is so impossible. This to you is something that is out of the realm of reasoning. When there is something there, I can't understand why. Absurd or impossible when you think about other things, to be honest. Still within the grounds of reasoning. I can't unmute him.
You can't? Why not? I can unmute him, but the only reason he's
unmute him.
I'll unmute him. But the only reason he's rejecting this evidence is because it goes against his bias.
Okay, so to equivocate phantom pain, like phantom limb pain, that is a false equivalency because your brain already has neurological synapses set since you were fucking born, literally just alerting you of your senses in your limbs or wherever on your body where you can feel things. So it's a false equivalency for one. Now, the whole accent thing,
it follows through with the notion that it's a frame of reference.
Bro, it's literally a false equivalency if I've ever heard one. You can't even equivocate what we're talking about with phantom limb pain whatsoever. In terms of the accent thing is not like fluently speaking another language because you got hit in the head. All right, honestly, think about what we're talking about. We're talking about getting hit in the head, and someone who doesn't know a language starts speaking that language. At first glance at the story, it's bullshit. But let's just dive deep into it, okay? How does it relate to the accent thing? If you're going to speak in another accent, what type of accent is it? Let's look at the people that this has happened to. Are they watching, let's say, are Americans watching British media? Or are British people watching American media? Or are they watching or are they among Spanish people or French people or Canadians or whoever, and they're literally picking up this accent because it's a big difference. The thing that I have with these articles is that they don't provide a shred of medical proof. And then people who want to believe in these articles and these stories, they say that that proof is way out of the reach of possibility. It's it compromises patient confidentiality, which is a complete falsehood. If they really wanted to prove it, they could. The records still exist. If you guys have ever gotten chicken pox before, this is just an anecdote here. But if you've ever gotten chicken pox before, ask your parents where you went to the doctor for chicken pox and ask them, can you look up my records in the 90s or the 2000s of when I had chicken pox and when I got checked in for that? They will fucking have it. They have everything in these records, guys. I'm literally going in for a medical degree. Okay? So like this is not out of the realm of possibility. The documentary I quoted earlier, Send Proof, it's literally called Send Proof. It's a bunch of Christians that are sending in like supposed
You're going for
evidence, medical evidence.
you're going for a medical degree, but yet you're referencing a documentary, and we're not even referencing a documentary at all.
This isn't.
And
This
you
this
have the
has, this
gall
has,
to talk
listen, that's
about
another
you
false
being an
equivalency.
appeal of authority.
That's
I
a
don't
false
think you're
equivalency.
the right person to be the
Listen,
appeal to authority, to be honest.
yes, that's a false equivalency.
And that's also a fallacy, appealing to you as an authority.
Not a fallacy. What I'm telling you,
when
what
you're
I'm trying to explain from this documentary here is that it is literally people sending medical records. That's what the website is, sendproof.com. They're literally sending in medical records to try and prove that they have had miracles of healing. You can look at other sources. They don't have to be Christian. They don't have to do with miracles or anything. People send medical records into the public for whatever reason. X-rays, doctor's reports, incident reports, all sorts of stuff. Like, you guys simply don't know what you're talking about when it comes to that stuff. And it's sad because you guys were fucking reading an article off of CNN or time.com.
We're not even talking about CNN.
Saying, like,
We're not even talking about CNN. We didn't talk about Fox. You're creating arguments which weren't there. We're being
literally
consistent
someone
enough.
mentioned CNN and sent me an article from CNN about the same story. But just like time.com, CNN had no hyperlinks and they had no sources to the actual medical records or the doctors that took care of it.
They can't share medical records like that publicly. That's
yes, they can, bro.
I didn't send you CNN. I sent you government. I sent you government.
Fucking retard.
You do not know what you're talking about when it comes to this stuff. You're saying
I
that the medical
absolutely
records are an
do.
impossibility.
I absolutely know what I'm
They are
talking
literally shared in a plethora of
You
instances
cannot
all the time.
share news media organizations cannot share medical records like that.
Yes, they
on
can.
Public television.
Yes.
Are you fucking crazy?
Yes, they can, bro.
No,
With
they
the
cannot.
consent-
Then
with
we
the
would all
consent-
be able to see all of the president's ailments, and we all have to wait until
you have
the
no.
PR.
If the family,
we all have to wait until the
family-
press secretary releases
bro,
any
you're not
information.
listening. You're not listening. If the family gives consent, if the boy gives consent, they
Even
can
then,
share.
it won't be the doctors communicating it or showing medical records. It would be the family going on television and telling you what happened.
No, they would literally be showing you medical records, dude.
All right,
It's
we're not
happened
talking
so
about
many fucking
post-mortem
times before, you don't know what
toxicology
you're talking about.
reports.
You
We're
literally
not
don't
talking
know
about,
what you're
listen
talking
to me.
about right now.
We're not talking about post-mortem toxicology
This is not.
reports.
No, I'm not talking about post-mortem anything. Literally, you do not know
All
what
right,
you're
show
talking
me
about when
one.
you're claiming
Show
that
me
you
one fucking news story
Congress-
that links medical records to it at the end of a particular
Congress-
patient, not a study. Just find one news story that
Yeah,
links
let's move to another channel.
Find
Bro,
one
I'm telling you,
news story that
you
links
really
to
don't know
post
what you're
medical
talking
records.
about, right? And it's sad. It's pathetic and it's sad.
You keep repeating. No, all you're doing is repeating the same thing.
All right, let me ask you this.
No.
Forget that
But I want to say this to you, Lama, right? The case will be like this. Either, okay, what's probable? Occam's razor. That all three of us are wrong. All three of us. right? Or you are wrong.
I'm not wrong. Medical records
You're not
can
wrong.
be
Okay, I'm going to
public
ask you. Okay, I'm going to ask you
consent of the
second
family
question.
or
Then
the
you're not
victim
wrong.
or
Okay, have you ever? I'm going to
it's a
ask you a
fact
second
of
question.
law,
I'm going to
bro.
ask you a
It is
second question.
literally a fact
Okay,
of
you
law
can.
in the
You're
United
free
States.
to have that opinion. Okay, second question is important though. I like to ask it. Thank you. Have you ever heard about FAS before?
Yeah, where people literally speak in different accents. That's not the same thing that we're
Have
talking about.
you ever heard of it
Yes, I
before?
have. I am in school for this
Okay,
shit, bro.
then okay. But thirdly, why are you doubling down? Why are you so adamant that we're wrong and you're right? When I was talking about in particular, what we're saying were isolated instances of incidents of this moment where you have people who woke up from a coma, stroke, or whatever, and they were able to speak fluently in another language. Okay, what
Because
was so impossible? When I
if it's
give
just
as
a
well the
story,
caveat, keep in mind that they learned that 30 years ago. What was so impossible? What am I doing? What is the declaration of, like, let's just say, of committing, let's just say, committing some sort of like ignorant like claim after that.
dude, you're presupposing that she did, but you have no evidence for it. What I'm looking for is evidence. My
What?
whole claim here is
Okay,
that
you've no
someone
so
asked
Wait
earlier.
a
I
minute,
think it was
basis.
one team.
Let me ask the question.
He
What
asked if there
possible?
was evidence for it, like a
Wait a minute.
doctor's report. I
What
would
light? What could a medical report how could a medical report possibly enlighten you as to why that would happen? Especially if the doctors have no fucking idea.
They don't have to say why it happened. All they need to do is confirm that it did happen.
How would
That's
they
all
be able
I'm
to
looking-
confirm whether this individual spoke Spanish prior to their coma and reawakening?
It's not about them doing it prior coma, prior ever going to the doctor's office for probably years. It's about the doctors reporting it on site, and we don't have that.
You
So
mean the
I'm not
doctors
going to
reporting
believe
that
the
the
story.
person wait a minute, just to clarify, you mean the doctors reporting that the person woke up speaking Spanish?
Yes, we need to have documentation of that happening, and they would literally put that in an incident report. They would. And if the family wanted to, and they evidently have made it public, they could have gotten those medical records. They can
All right,
absolutely
so
take
that,
medical
I don't
records.
think you're
I
not
have
looking
a
for
folder.
medical records.
I
You're looking
literally
for
have a
wait a minute, basis. You're not looking for medical records. What you're looking for is
right now.
testimony from the doctor.
The medical record is the testimony of the doctor and the nurse.
They might not listen. They might not include something like speaking Spanish in an incident report. They might just say individual woke up and he was speaking.
They would put if it was an abnormal
But they
event,
have
they would
no idea to know what the
there's
person's native language is.
plenty of doctors' reports and nurse written incident reports, which they are paragraphs to literal essays long, and they do account for abnormal events that
So to save
wouldn't
time, why don't
normally
you
be
just
put in.
Google testimony from doctor regarding blah, 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 blah. Find the name of the phenomenon, whatever they call that particular phenomenon, when people wake up out of coma speaking languages that they didn't previously know. There must be a name for that phenomenon. And Google doctor testimony as to blank, and you should find a lot of cases of it. And I'll give you one famous case. Okay, there's a woman named Dorothy Eady, and if anybody here who's into history or Egyptology, she is an Egyptologist that was one of the world experts on hieroglyphs. She was like in the top 3 world experts for hieroglyphs. And yet she had never studied hieroglyphs, never studied linguistics, never been to Egypt, and never studied Egyptology. She suffered an injury after World War I bombing, and when she came to, they nursed her back to health. Her parents took her to a museum in, I believe, London, where there was an exhibit on ancient Egypt, and something clicked with her. She just felt familiar and kept telling her parents that she knew what all these things were and wanted to go home. It was then that throughout her life, she developed this uncanny, almost instinctual understanding of Egypt, how to read hieroglyphs. She knew layouts of complexes. She knew the internal layouts of temples without being in there. It was all as if this stuff was transmitted to her through gnosis or something. And that's
Okay,
like
so
one of
is there
that's one of the
evidence
most
that
famous
she knew this
examples
stuff
along the
before
lines
learning
of what you're
about it
talking about.
in a scholarly or academic setting? Is there any evidence at all
All
that
right,
this
so
woman
all
during
you
World
have to
War
do
One
is, yeah,
knew
this
this
is
stuff or
well
didn't know this stuff?
documented, and it's well documented, and she's famous, world renowned.
Yeah, but
All
I'm
you have to
asking,
do is
is there
Google
is there
Dorothy Eady.
I don't
That's
care if she's world
Eady.
renowned. I don't care if she's world renowned. I'm asking, is there evidence that she did not have any education in like Egyptology
So
or
how
hieroglyphics or
do you
anything like that?
believe that an 8 or 9-year-old could have possibly learned all of that linguistics
Do
material?
we have evidence that she was interpreting these things at 8 or 9 years old?
Yes.
What, a testimony?
Yes, from her family and from
From her
other, I
fucking
guess,
family?
experts.
Really? So you're gonna consider that evidence? Do you know how many things people lie about, bro? Like, they will lie about damn near
Well, I
anything.
mean, by that logic, then the individual taking the incident report at the hospital could be lying as well.
It's a false equivocation, because what's more likely that these two parents are lying about some supernatural phenomenon that has been bequeathed upon their child to
Listen,
give her some
people lie.
sort of fame and to give her prestige and to get her in school and to get her into this shit?
My
Or
ex-girlfriend used to lie about how much she bought her shoes for. Okay, I don't know why people fucking lie about stupid shit.
okay, so it could very well be a lie. What's more likely, that she lied or she had some like gnosis experience and all this Egypt hieroglyphic and intertemple blueprints were just transmuted into her?
It depends on your worldview. So for me, I mean, for some people who believe in some kind of, like, I don't know, cosmic consciousness, maybe it's not so hard for them to believe.
But the thing is that your worldview and stories like that have no evidence. Zero. Testimony is not evidence, like especially testimony from parents.
Well,
If
we
we're
don't
talking doctors'
we don't have any
talking about
concrete
incident
evidence
reports from hospitals,
outside of
that's a
your mind.
different story.
Like, can you prove to me that reality outside of your mind exists?
Oh my god.
That's a false equivocation,
It's
bro.
not a false equivocation.
It is a false equivocation,
No,
because
it's
we're
not, 'cause
talking
if you
about an
wanna get down
8-year-old
to the
that
nitty-gritty, like,
supposedly
you
got
can't really prove
transmuted
anything.
knowledge of Egyptian hieroglyphics at 8 years old prior to knowing about it, and you're just gonna fucking believe that? Like, really, bro? People lie about all sorts of things. Look at all the religions in the world, all the politics on the world in the
So,
world, all
do
the
you not think
contradicting
that's still
history
no,
in the world.
irrespective, like what I was talking about? You
Think
talk about
about
evidence
people
all
in
the
your personal lives that literally lie, and you know that they have lied about so much shit, and you're just gonna believe this one story because it's famous. There's a lot of famous lies that millions and billions of people believe.
But
So
this is not
don't
like no, Bowes. You're making a false equivocation. I think that's ironic. You're actually referencing this to something like the Bible when we're talking about something that can be rationally sort of like brought upon to being something that is okay. We reference this to medical like theories and something that is medical like records, foreign accent syndrome, and then we're talking about okay how like someone who has trauma can experience other things. Let's just say artistic talents even or something like that. That's pretty consistent. All right, and the other phenomenons of such. And to say that, oh, now you're going to reference to something lies, the great lies of the Bible and all the rest, that's completely absurd. When we're talking about something that's medical science and something that can be peer-reviewed and something that is
medical science. What I'm trying to draw here is the fact that there are literally so many contradictory lies in the entire
He's empty posturing.
It's platitudes. I don't want platitudes. I don't want this attitude of platitude, all right? Listen, you listen, you platypus, all right? Get off your fucking keister and actually look up what we're saying, all right? Otherwise, it's all falling off deaf ears.
Did you say platitude?
Bro, I'm literally, I know about...
Yeah, I did. Because I wanted him to get the gist. Okay.
But to sit here and say that some kids
you haven't listened. You haven't come. Listen, you didn't come back with anything.
I mean, think about it. You guys.
I want you to read it. All you're doing is regurgitating. No, I want you to read the thing because you haven't even read what I've sent you, did you? Obviously, you didn't.
What's your name?
Oh my god, man! Really?
No, I
sent
already
you
know
some-
about foreign
You
accent
didn't read
syndrome,
it?
bro. I have
read it,
literally
man.
studied it
Read
in
it.
school for like 2 weeks, literally, among other
2
things.
weeks.
Like you don't know.
2 weeks. I will say
It's not the same thing as speaking another language. There's naturalistic explanations for foreign accent syndrome. Like you sit
So
there.
why do I have to bring in? Why do I have to collect the evidence when you believe? Then when
Why-
you research it for
why do
about
you need
2 weeks.
evidence? Why do you need?
No. In this case, no. When it's already established, when it's already part of deduction. All right. Do you know what deduction is? Something that's agreed upon theory. Something that's already established. All right. So like, it's already evident. It's already there. We're all we're doing is appealing to something that's already there to begin with. So this is
I'm not
already established.
disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing
Yeah.
that foreign accent syndrome is.
So
is
foreign
not
accent
real or
syndrome
real.
is a
I believe
syndrome.
it.
There's no
Yeah.
yeah.
I believe
if
it's real.
this exists
I believe it's real. What's the
and
problem with that?
persists to exist, then what is contingent to your arguing point? Like, why do you argue?
Because
Are
it's
you
not,
arguing
it's
for the
not,
sake of
it's
arguing?
not the fucking same as someone speaking a language fluently, bro. It's literally not the same at all. Do you understand that? You understand how foreign accent syndrome has actually been documented with like real medical records, and like this foreign language picker-upper from a fucking head injury has not been documented at all? Like people getting hit in the head and speaking fluent French or Spanish or Egyptian hieroglyphics. You guys are literally relying on.
Well, I'm not
fucking
even taught. I didn't even listen. I didn't even make that claim. All right, Mike.
That's what the
What I
whole
was
argument
saying
has been
is
about.
no. I listen. What I was saying is, we agree that foreign accent syndrome exists. It doesn't seem to be outside the realm of reasoning to, let's just say, to presume. Let's just say to presume. No, let me finish. Let me to presume
from foreign people, like British people, Americans.
To presume that someone can access, like, let's just say, a language they learned
last game
at a certain point in their life, and then speak it fluently for about 2 weeks. Does that seem very impossible to you? Now, this is not something I would say that's going to occur to every person, but it's probably an isolated incident. And it seems to be something that is, it seems to be not just one instance of this happening. There seems to be multiple instances of this happening. So it seems to be, if we're going through the route of science, it seems to be it must have some sort of credibility to it.
Okay, so let me grant you that.
It's not. So from my point, like, when I'm breaking it down from my deduction, I think it's not such a weak argument. I think there's a bit of a strong argument there for it, but you don't want to look into it. So
no, oh my gosh,
that's down to you.
Let me grant you it for the sake of story. Okay, even though I don't believe it's a strong argument at all, and I don't believe these stories. But I had a girlfriend once, and she was fucking weird and psycho. And she told me that she was a white girl, and she was sitting at a table with a couple Mexican girls, and someone started being racist to these Mexican girls. And my white girlfriend started cussing her out in Spanish, and she did not know Spanish at all. This is just a story, and I didn't fucking believe her. But she even told me that, like, the Spanish girls or the Mexican girls that were with her recited what she had said to her to let her know what she said, and it was some very savage shit. I still don't believe her. I think she was full of shit. I literally believe she was full of shit, and I think these stories that don't have any evidence for them are I think they're shit. There's no evidence.
No, but the woman thing, what happened there was always because they're monitored all the time. To me, it doesn't seem like bullshit, because who's going to be there to witness in the first, right off the bat, is a nurse or a practitioner, some doctor, and then they witness this person who has been he's English, who's never spoken like French fluently, and then they start speaking French and need a translator for fuck's sakes to communicate to them. How does that legitimate? That makes it more legitimate, doesn't it? So to me, that
they need to write.
Why would they need a translator then?
they have this guy was speaking Spanish, right? They have Spanish
He's talking about a
translators
Spanish person, but the reason why I bring this up, go on.
Bro, listen to me clearly. You sound like you're from a different country, like Scotland or Ireland, okay? In every fucking hospital in the United States, there are translators for the Spanish language, and it is a requirement for every hospital to have a translator. So if he was actually speaking Spanish, never mind that I know when someone's speaking Spanish, even though I don't know the language, they could have had a translator confirm it. But besides that, in the incident report, they could have written down or typed up, kid was speaking Spanish and was not fluent in it and was speaking fluently, and they could have released that medical record with the signature of the nurse or the doctor, and believe it at that point. But no, with no evidence, you can't believe this shit. You have to have, you don't need a Spanish translator, but you need a Spanish translator in every hospital. So they could have look, it's a black kid, right? Some black kid in whatever part of America. Why the fuck would he need to know Spanish? They could have said black kid started speaking fluent Spanish.
The point is, it's not so, the thing I don't understand is, it's not like we're pulling this like it's a magic fucking sword. This is like a super ability. What we're saying, it's to some degree, like what I sent you about the woman, she spoke this 30 years ago. She studied this in secondary school, okay? She might not have been fluent, but yet she wakes up. The mind, whatever trauma, whatever point, however occurred, when she woke up from this injury, it then just registered that now, okay, I speak French fluently. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a God-given gift or whatever it is, but man, it's not so impossible to say that this was just this is bullshit. I wouldn't say it's bullshit, because at least to some degree she experienced speaking that.
Evidence for it, dude.
She spoke it in the past, probably 30 years ago, but that's still something there. She probably retained that information there in her head, and whatever occurred, this is what happened apparently. And also, I would say to you, I don't know about the Spanish kid, but maybe it might be a similar incident of basically this kid learning Spanish briefly, but yet waking up speaking it fluently. I can't understand why that's such a huge logical leap, when if it's already there in some way, there's information that's accessed.
It's about these. Okay, it's two things. It's about these particular stories. I don't believe these particular stories because there's no evidence for them. On top of that, there could be and I drew this parallel earlier, there could be a naturalistic explanation for this that's completely outside the scope as to which the people who brought it up in the first place were trying to draw, which they were trying to draw supernatural experience or causation. So
again, we're not making supernatural claims. We're just I'm keeping consistent to what has happened, what has occurred. How is it impossible when it's actually happened?
I have never claimed that it's impossible. I've claimed that these stories cannot be proven true because there's no evidence for them. I even earlier, you weren't paying attention. I literally drew a naturalistic explanation, drawing a parallel to autistic people.
You were talking, but you were talking about autistic people, and then you were talking about your girlfriend, and then coming from this point that's like an anecdote. This is something where these are patients who are in a hospital, are monitored, they're actually there witnesses. So I find that's a bit of a
we don't have evidence of the medical records for these stories, dude.
That's a false equivalency. Now that's a false.
It's not a false.
No,
me bringing up the autistic people is not a false equivalency because they have extraordinary memory.
You're learning.
They can
that's your
tell
learning exercise. That's a false equivalency.
They can
remember that.
The exact. Bro, listen, you're not paying attention. I can tell you're a fucking deist.
Well, I
so-
have been paying attention to you. I have, because I brought up about your girlfriend, so I have been paying attention.
I literally
Yes.
said like the girlfriend story was just a complete anecdote.
Mhm.
It didn't matter, and I didn't believe her. But
Yeah.
it's just another thing that
Okay.
I've heard in life. But the thing is, with the autistic, anecdote or the story, parallel, or whatever, there is actual documented proof that they have extraordinary memory. Like they can tell you the color of the sky on September 7th, 2000.
You realize that's a savant thing, not an autistic thing, right?
It doesn't have to do with all forms of autism, obviously. It's a neurological phenomenon.
Yeah, usually they call them savants. It's
you have
because it's like it's like someone with autism got super autism, literally.
Okay, so let's just say super autistic people, they can remember things extraordinarily well. They can play 2 songs on the piano at the same time on 2 different pianos. Their memory is fucking out of this world. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone heard literally like most of the spoken words of a language and then got hit in the head and then started speaking it. My thing is that there's no evidence for these stories in the medical records. That's my only point. And you guys want to die on this hill saying like, yes, this boy in this article in time.com. Definitely.
How does that make any sense that you get like knocked in the head and then you start speaking a language?
Well, if you would study neurology, you would know there's different regions of the brain that have different capacity for memory. So if you get knocked in the head, it can lean you towards one part of the brain or the other, or take away 2 and add, increase 3. Your brain power gets allocated elsewhere. There's all sorts of things that happen.
Do you think if someone knocked you in the head, you'd make sense to me now?
Yeah, bro, you literally sound like a fucking neckbeard. You need to get some...
Okay, Bausus, I would say you lose credibility when you insult people so quickly when they're like throwing you a bit of shade. You can't.
B Mars is a cyclops, not a neckbeard. Get it right.
Yeah, he is a worthy cyclops. There's many qualities of strength and girth.
You just can't take
That's worth.
seriously that want to die on this stupid hill. Like
it's not. Okay, there isn't a stupid hill when there's some sort of credibility to it. Okay,
there's no credibility. Your idea of credibility and my idea of credibility are very different. I want medical evidence.
Your idea, my idea. Oh, first of all, you have no idea of my idea. You can't think of my idea.
Here's the
we can't exchange thoughts.
Like me and someone
you
like
can't
you don't require evidence for a serious.
Oh, you say I don't require evidence.
I require medical evidence for a serious medical claim. That's it. If you want to believe all these crazy stories with literally zero medical documentation, that is
no belief.
But my point is
what's
you need
there.
Medical evidence.
What's the
for
circumstance
medical
that occurred?
And if you don't require that, that's fine. But you're not really going to get anywhere in terms of like actually encompassing knowledge inside of your mind.
Are you done with the platitude?
Stories that don't have evidence for them.
Are you done with the platitude? Are you done with the platitude?
The only evidence we have here is that Bassus is medically retarded.
Bassus, you get your point across when you don't come across like you're a platitude from a dictionary.
I don't even know.
I know about peer reviewed. I know about scientific method. I know about Aristotle. Do you know about Aristotle? But I don't need to appeal to them because I'm giving you the benefit of doubt.
What would
and you should too.
You
should give me the benefit of doubt too. It's like as if we're mutual human beings with our own cognitive function and we can exchange information to each other like we're actually understanding each other. And you can't understand what I'm talking about because you're speaking past me. It's like as if we're mutually understanding human beings that can exchange information on the principle that we're actually civil. And please be civil when you're talking to me. Good man.
Like Bassus, I want to argue your point because I'm on your side of this argument, and I'll say it like real direct in the way that I think. I think this is what Semper's
Take your
talking about.
brains.
Hold on. Is that I think that we can remember things, right? And I think that we can invent things. But to discover other people's inventions, like specifically their inventions, like a language, I don't think that's possible. So I think I could get hit on my head and remember Spanish, but I don't think that I could get a hit on my head and discover the modern grammar of Spanish. Just like, whoa, here it is. There's Spanish.
That was exactly my point. But another point of mine was that you can't believe these stories because there's no medical evidence for them.
Well, I mean, you could believe stuff that doesn't have medical evidence, but if you
Okay,
were
I agree. You can believe things without evidence. Obviously, people do
well,
it.
I don't mean like without any evidence, but with varying levels of evidence. Like there's a lot of things that we believe in this world that we don't have scientific proof for. Like if you take a look
wish I
at,
could say
if you take a look at
evidence.
like, if you take a look, have you ever read any of David Hume?
No.
Okay. Well, he kind of makes this argument that we assume, like we inductively assume a lot of things that we don't really know. Like when you see the teapot whistle, you assume that there's like a diffraction or whatever of water molecules, which creates pressure, and then yada yada, makes a noise. But you've never seen atoms split apart with your own eyes, because there's like a whole bunch of a priori information that we just kind of assume and we take in, and we really haven't tested it.
Our hypotheses really they transmute into real practical use with atoms. I mean, like look at a fucking bottle of Febreze or like
I don't
409.
want to get too far down a dog leg path here. Basically, what I was just trying to say is we wouldn't have time to perform all the experiments that we would use as mid-level scientists, to demonstrate, okay, spectrometry, we know it works because I've done you know what I mean? We just take a lot of things
This
for
guy
granted.
is the worst.
So from a philosophical viewpoint, it's kind of okay to stop and say, well, maybe not everything has to be empirically proved for us to say that we know it. But what? So I'm just saying, like, to speak in absolutes.
In Canada, you pay the full cost, basically. Like it's subsidized.
Answer that you want from me.
Just name the organization.
I said the Discovery Institute. So.
I already granted you that.
And then he was giving you the reason why. And then he's going to give you the next one.
Yeah, and so the Wedge document, it was revealed in the Wedge document.
Why are we talking
they
about
were
the Wedge
discarding
document?
all the evidence for evolution, and they wanted to sway the
Same
public with political
I already granted
campaigns
you the Discovery
with
Institute.
the controversy ads to
What
have
is going
intelligent
on?
design.
I already granted you this. I already granted you this.
Okay, so how is that not
Second
dishonest?
organization out of the tons.
Okay, but how is that not dishonest, though?
I already
Bro, I
granted you
actually
that.
just posted something exactly about this in the chat. You should go check
Forget
it
about
out.
it.
It's scientists doing the
I'm more
exact same
interested in
thing
the
you're
first-
accusing.
I'm more
You wanna
interested
talk
in
about
this
the
person's
Kitchener?
reasoning. He just said tons of organizations were proven to be dishonest. And he keeps talking about one organization which is probably not
Well,
dishonest.
I
which I
picked the
granted
Discovery
him just for sake of
because
argument.
they've had the
I want to hear the
greatest.
second organization.
Mine
I
are
chose-
cited quotes
so
from
I
scientists. You can
chose
go
the-
read
What
them
is
right
the
now.
second
I chose the
organization
Discovery
out of the
Institute because they were
That
the
is
most
same one everyone
influential
saw. I've already
with
granted
intelligent
that.
design.
Already granted that.
Okay.
Consequences. Now, those repercussions and consequences, if I did it and I get punished, why should I complain about being punished?
And
I
you
did
know
it.
what? I got to give you absolute credit for that, because a lot of people throw up their hands and say it's not fair.
No,
If
it's
there is a
completely
God,
fair.
if
It's
there is,
completely fair.
right, because you're making that decision and saying, if there is a God, still doesn't matter. I want to live, the way I want to live. I want to use that, and it's your choice. So if you want, like you said, depart on that sense, and God does that for eternity, you've welcomed that because God has granted you your choice. And in fact, that makes him another great thing. He grants you what you want.
Now, at the same adding on to this,
Mhm.
I try to live my life to be a good person. Maybe not by Christian standards, but by
Well, under Christian standards, no human is good.
yeah.
So,
But I try to live the best way I can. I don't go out of my way to hurt people. I don't go out of my way to steal from people. I don't steal at all. If I need something, I'll ask you for it. And if you cannot give it to me at that time, I understand. Can I borrow it then? Because if, let's say, I need to borrow a tool or I need to borrow $50, if that is not doable, I understand. Then we can come up with another solution. Maybe I can work for you. Maybe I can do something for you. We could make a trade. So you understand what I'm saying. I believe that there's always a way to achieve your goals while still being a good person.
Here, lips so white.
Yeah, pressure. I filmed that fucking music video
But
yesterday.
you were crying because your JV football team
Oh,
lost the game.
so did
Hey,
you post
Bruno,
it or
how
what?
many cheeseburgers you
Back
today?
in 2 weeks, the video.
Yeah,
I'm looking for it right now.
Today, all next week.
He definitely has some stuff on his face, yeah.
Nah, she's serious.
Uncle asked me to DM him, then he fucking.
Way back in the day, this female patient of this particular hospital, you actually witnessed her speaking.
I believe that even things that you would consider evil to be potentially good in some ways. Example, killing a child. Yes, that is inherently bad in my mind because children.
Every situation?
No, not every situation. That's where I'm getting to. But the general, just a general concept of killing a child, just the general understanding that is bad. But let's say you are killing Adolf Hitler as a child. You would save millions of people, potentially. While at the same time, potentially,
we wouldn't know that. Well, but we can't use that idea though, because
I'm just saying hypothetically, if you could.
Well, then let's use a better hypothetical. How about this? To kill the child would be able to save, like 50 people.
Well, we're not discussing abortion. We're discussing the outright murder of a young child who would grow up to become.
Yeah. So if you
kill
kill this kid, 50 people are going to be set free from their life. So you have a quantity versus quality thing, if you will.
Yes, and in my mind, that is perfectly permissible.
Gotcha.
If it is necessary to save the lives of others and to maintain the balance and security, as well as the general freedoms and stability of this world that we live in, it is fully permissible in my mind.
Do you have a kid?
No, and I know where you're coming from on this one.
No,
And-
I was
and-
just.
but
I was
even
gonna
if
say
I
like
had a
like.
kid,
No,
I
I
would
was
be-
gonna
yeah.
say it would be
Even if I had-
interesting if your kid was placed as that kid, would you still allow your kid to be killed just to save 50 people you've never met?
50 people I've never met?
Yeah.
No. More than that? Let's say millions?
Okay, 50 people you've met.
Okay, 50 people I've met. Do I like these people?
It's just you've talked to him before. I don't know. You could categorize that any way you'd like.
Then I would still have to say no, mainly because it's my kid versus 50 people I probably don't even like,
Yeah.
But,
See, I
but
think
if it was on a larger
it's really
scale.
strange.
Well,
I just-
it is, but on a larger scale, like if it was millions or even 1 billion people on the line, or let's say the
Yeah, but I brought up
complete control-
50 and you said yes.
Well, yes, to a
And
child
then
that is
and
not
then
mine.
and then I said no, you said It seemed like you were.
Oh, I thought we were discussing a child that was not mine at the
Well,
time.
no, I said now because I asked you, do you have a kid? Then from that moment, I said, well, let's like implement like let's say you had a child, and then from there, I've been starting from that setting,
Yeah,
like that premise.
but that's where I'm coming from. If it is my child, then it would have to be more than 50 people. It would have to be thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. It would have to be an
Why could it
astronomical
not?
number
Why could it not only be 50?
because it's only 50 people.
Yeah, but 50 was okay for the other child and his, and the
Yes,
mother.
because I have no connection to that child. Oh, it is, man. But at the same time, I have no, like if it's my child, yeah, I don't care about 50 fucking people. That's my kid.
But you
That's my
care about
son.
100,000 people you've never met.
Yes, because that number, 50 versus 100,000 or 100 million. Yeah, to be honest, that's a major jump.
So it's 100,000 people you've never met. What if it, hypothetically, it ends up being, most of them end up becoming part of, if you will, like cultic-like groups, and they start to tirade and rape and pillage and kill other people.
Well, then I just
That's
say,
not too
okay.
unrealistic. That happens.
Well, no, it's not unrealistic at all. I would honestly just say, okay, I made the wrong choice, so now I have to clean up this mess. And I would take it upon myself to either break apart those societies and ruin those people, or attempt to show them the error of their ways.
Why wouldn't you like put blame on yourself since you made the decision?
Well, because the question, would you
I mean,
put blame?
it's like because
Because if
I want to
someone
see.
forces your hand, who's the blame on? The person who forced your hand, or you for being?
I didn't force your hand. I asked
no,
you a question like,
yeah, but
would you? You
that's
could have
the
said
situation.
no, but you could have said no. You said yes. So that's how we were perceiving off of your answer. So I didn't
Yeah.
force you into anything.
No, I'm not saying you did, but the circumstances of my kid
Yeah.
versus a million lives.
Well,
Yeah,
but
okay.
no, but you accepted that premise. So I didn't force you because you accepted it. If I
no,
forced it in your face and
I'm
said
not
you have to
saying
accept this,
you
or I'm
are
going to mute you
forcing
or
me.
something, then
No, I'm not saying you are forcing me. I'm saying in the premise that I would be forcing myself, and at the same time, these 1 million people would essentially be pressuring and forcing me. Because would you sacrifice 1 million people for your son?
Man,
Yes, hypothetically, I would be torn between my own agenda versus what is right in my mind. That's what I mean by being
Wait,
forced.
what? That doesn't follow.
Well, so my own agenda being my bloodline,
But-
my own son.
Yeah, but why would that have to interfere with what is considered right? Because that means it's a standard outside of you. It can't be within you.
Well, I don't like the idea of
No,
millions
but
of
that's what
people
I'm
being
saying. Like
killed.
this whole time, like that's another inconsistency. We are innately
I've already
built
told
to have
you
an
that
objective
I will have
stance. One
inconsistencies.
thing.
I will have inconsistencies because this is just how my mind works.
Well, no, that's not an excuse. I'm hoping I can point out enough of these for you to realize that the views that you follow just
they make sense to me.
They do not make sense if you were to put them up into if you put them into action. They do not follow.
Well-
They follow. Here's why they make sense to you. They make
Mhm.
sense when we're having a discussion and we're freely using our mind and we're being able to come up with concepts and we can come up with things off, our head. It's not going to be that consistent when we get into the real world and these things start actually happening to us or to people that we love or things to the contrary. Because it's never the action that we care about. Oh, we care about the action, but the action doesn't matter. It's the reaction is what makes it inconsistent.
Okay.
Because the fact that there's a reaction to anything of an action in any view of relativism shows that there is an inconsistency. So earlier when you said like, well, it's right according to my mind, but my guilty trait says this. Well, you can't have it both ways. This is why Francis Collins, Human Genome Project, talked about his biggest problem with evolution and shows that it points to the intelligence of God, his view of evolution, because he's an evolutionist. But is because evolution, that whole idea cannot account for these crazy altruistic acts. You know, it doesn't count for them.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I can show you just enough of these so you can realize like dude, like you are living according to yourself, but like there's more out there. And like I know you can see it. I know you know it's there. And you know, it's these games that you play, not saying that you play, but we play regarding of like conversing online, and we can take it to a certain extent, but there's certain things like the idea of everything's relative, all that, it doesn't hold up. It only holds up in a conversation. The moment we step away from the conversation, everything changes. The moment someone steps their toe on you, you have a problem with it. Well, according to that standard, it's your standard against his standard. They're on the equal footing. You can't point the fingers at each other. You're not allowed to.
I mean, allowance, you know, standards, all
No,
these
do you know why
things.
you're not allowed to? Is because I told you earlier what you heard. The action, if there is even a reaction, shows that there's a standard above of objectivity. There itself, it says, if there's a reaction to something, you're saying that what they're doing is wrongful. That requires a standard above you and the other person. Because you can't be going to your own standard again. That's self-refuting.
And yet, I do.
No, you do in conversation. You
No,
won't as soon as you
even
step
in
back.
life. Even in life, I do anything that I so desire to do, regardless of what
Sure.
it is.
You
But I do
can.
not hurt others. I
Right.
do not harm
No,
others.
well, actually, you can't say that because you said earlier you were willing to kill a child if it were to say, you know,
Willing to,
over,
yes.
yeah,
But I have
50
not
people.
actively did it.
Yeah, well, no, but I'm saying the fact that you're willing to shows that you cannot hold up this moral stance that you won't kill anyone.
Well, I'm not saying I
Because,
won't.
again, that's another contradictory
I'm not
thing.
saying I won't. I will not do it needlessly. Now, in self-defense, yes. If it's in defense of myself or another person, yes.
Okay, but the self-defense of another person still involves of killing.
Yes, and sometimes it is necessary.
So the self-defense of...
In the defense of another person, I would. Yes.
Well, I understand
defense of
certain killing of
myself, I would.
self-defense.
Wouldn't
But the way that you... Sorry, go for it.
I was gonna say, like, wouldn't the 9/11 hijacker terrorists, they had basically the same rationale, like, oh, we'll like kill these people in the building, and then that'll save. I don't know. They viewed like they're saving certain X amount of people. I'm assuming for Allah or whatever. So.
Question: Are you making a connection with my
there's this-
mentality and terrorism?
Well, that's an interesting... No, that's an interesting parallel if you want to phrase it of a personal selfish reason to do a moral action. Because what they did was regarding, because their belief system is you do these works and you get good favor with Allah. Like you work your way up to, you know, the afterlife with good works. So them doing that was them believing that it would help them get into the afterlife.
I'm sorry, Abdul. I know you blew yourself up for me, but you only killed one. I need you to kill 2.5 more.
Yeah, he
So,
didn't turn to Christ, so
yeah.
he's just he's in the ground, unfortunately.
Yep.
Well, I was just thinking like it's a slippery slope or whatever. Like when you start to say, like,
It is. It's a
yeah.
very slippery slope, which is why I have to, you know, it. Look, if I were to just do anything and everything I wanted to do, I would not be sitting here talking with you guys. You know, so I do make conscious decisions on what would be best for me.
I know.
And best for
I've
those around.
already said you have.
Oh no, I was talking to Auntie.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
no,
Sorry,
it's
different.
that's all good. We don't really have a way to, you know, say hey, unless I say hey, Auntie, or hey, blessed, this is to you, which that's fucking redundant and stupid in my opinion, unless we are, you know, actively holding multiple conversations and cross lines, you know. But all in all, I do understand what you are saying, and I will think about it. I will try my best to understand it. Now, may I ask a question that I have been sitting on for the last 30 minutes?
Sure.
Well, I can say for certain that there is an afterlife or something beyond this. I cannot say for certain what it is exactly. but I can say for certain there is one. And you were talking about your grandmother. I like to tell you about mine. She was a very interesting woman. You know, she had the same thinking process as me in some ways, except she was much more, I guess you could say, morally objective. You know, she had a limit, whereas I don't really have a limit. My limit is whatever needs to be done at that time to get the job done. And yeah, well, after my grandmother passed away, you know, she died of multiple organ failure. After she died, we had her, you know, she was cremated. And it's what she wanted to have done. She just wanted us to cremate her and spread her ashes where she lived, you know, when she was a child. Well, we cremated her, and not even 3 or 4 days after the funeral, you know, like right after, it's a few days, I was staying at my mother's house, and we were, you know, it was me, my mother, and her boyfriend. They were in they were in another room. I was sleeping in the living room. You know, my mother and you know, and her boyfriend both saw the same thing I did, except in that room. There was no visual of in the room from where I was versus, you know, them into where I was. There was no line of sight. Well, I got woken up, and I saw my grandmother standing in the middle of the room. She was wearing a black veil over her face and a black dress that was, I guess you could say, kind of see-through around the arms, but it was still like a silk dress. It was quite nice, almost like a wedding gown. Well, she looked at me, and her eyes were black and sunken in. Her veins were black. All across her face, her skin was like a dark grayish color, almost like ash. And she held her arms open with very long black fingernails and said, and in a very distorted voice said, "Give Mama a hug." She would always say that to me. And my mother and her boyfriend saw the same figure standing at the foot of their bed. She grabbed my mother by her ankles and dragged her out of bed. I heard the scream. I heard her scream. And I heard her boyfriend scream as well. I heard him say, "Oh shit, what was that?" And she comes running out to check on me. She told me what happened. Not even 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from my little brother and my stepfather and his new wife. All three of them had a similar experience at around the same time. My grandmother slapped my little brother across the face. She stabbed a needle into my stepfather's new wife, and she just stared at my stepfather. Same figure, same descriptions from 5 different people. What does that sound like to you?
That sounds like a something demonic.
Yeah, a demon.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. My grandmother was evil. She was very evil.
I was gonna say demon too, but I was gonna be polite.
No, I'm serious. She was very evil.
my
Like
Krauts,
she was nice to me.
If you know that exists, and if you know that your heart is more humble and in a better place than something like that, why would you want to get yourself attached to something like that?
How do I answer that without sounding insane?
I don't believe there's human spirits. I think the demons will appear as like a lost loved one to like.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I had experiences with demons in the past.
Well, I believe they happen for warning signs. See, mine. I'm glad you said it. Just real quick, one thing.
Mm-hmm.
My experience I had after I started dating her, February 8th, 11:56 p.m.
Okay, seriously, man, please stop that.
I can't. It's built into the mind now.
No, I get that, but it's a little creepy.
A little bit after, a few months after that, we took a trip to Florida, and that's when coronavirus hit.
Yeah.
We were only there for like 3 to 4 days. I don't remember, it's 3 or 4. But we came back and we got home around 11 o'clock. And her sister, her best friend Natalie, but her /sister, left rotten milk in the room. So it was chilling for 4 days. And it just
stunk.
smelled bad. So I told her I wanted to sleep in the couch bed. She told me weird stuff happens at night. I don't want to sleep out there. And I told you, mind you, I didn't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
We went out there, we slept. I woke up once around 12 o'clock. Wake up, look around, nothing. Woke up again around 2 o'clock. Wake up, look around, and then in the hallway, the light is on. So if you're facing here, you've got the island in the kitchen here, and then you've got the long, dark hallway. Well, the light was on.
Down the hallway.
Yeah, the
Straight
light, the washer and dryer light was on. And I thought to my head, I was like, oh, okay, it's on. Then in the back of my head, I was like, wait a minute, why is it on? Because it takes like that door seriously needs some WD-40 to get into the garage. And if you're going to open that, it's going to slam if you're doing laundry, especially at night. So I'm confused why this light's on. So I go back to sleep. I woke up again around 3. There was this 1-gallon soap jar that was about a foot away from the sink that fell into the sink and woke us up. And I put on my glasses and I look up. And there's this dark, tall figure in front of the fridge.
Shadow man. Yeah.
And at first
Shadow
I'm
man.
thinking to myself, and it's bubbled around the edge.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, this must be Jessica, because Jessica is an alcoholic and she'd like to get up and drink. And I'm like, wait, no, the sink's taller than the fridge. And the fridge is like 6'5". I'm 6'3", the fridge is taller than me. It's got like 2 inches.
I got to stop you here because I had the same exact issue here. But question.
Just yeah.
Was it just a silhouette that looked like it was wearing a cloak?
No.
Or did you see a hat?
No. So it was just dark figure. The only thing, it had abnormally long arms. And when I took one step towards it, my girlfriend grabbed my arm and went, "Baby, don't." And I turned back. I took one step. It bolted to the pantry door, which is about 6 feet to the right, slammed the pantry door open, and the light flipped on. The light was over nearby me. That was my moment when I started looking into like religion and things like that. Was that experience? Because me and her corroborated the same story. We didn't have a hallucination because collective hallucinations don't happen like that. Visions are the same things like dreams. They happen individually in your mind. You know, there's nothing here
I'm well
positive.
aware of that. I've studied this because I had a very similar incident when I was a child. And this is actually why me and God kind of have a weird relationship. Because for almost 3 years, every single night at the same time, my bedroom door would would open on its own, and I would be paralyzed in my bed, and I could not move. Then the door would close, and from out behind the door would come this man walking towards me. And all I can say is every night, he would just sit there and stare at me, like right there at my face. We would lock eyes. I could not look away. He would not look away. And he would just smile and grin and pet my head and do things to try and comfort me, try and calm me down. Well, this continued on, and then more and more showed up. At one time, I had about 50 of these things in my bedroom, standing around my bed. Like my bed was sandwiched in the corner. You know, I had a wall and a wall, like where my head
Man,
was. Yeah.
you don't want to be no. I want an answer to the question earlier. Then why would you want to even be connected with those things when you know that they're evil?
Well, actually, this is why I said it would be hard to say without, a little bit of backstory, without sounding insane. They used to sing to me, and I'm not talking that they never really scared me. After I started paying attention to them, they just looked scary. But their actions, their intentions, all of them except for one, and that one was just brutal, man. It was fucking brutal. All the others chased it off, and they were there to protect me.
You said music?
Yeah, they would sing to me
Mm-mm.
every night.
No, music is what the angel Lucifer was, the power that he had.
It was the most beautiful music I've
Yeah,
ever heard.
I know. Yeah.
It was, Like
Uh-huh.
it sounded like 1,000 choirs in
Yeah.
perfect unison.
Yeah. Krauts, dude, that is literally Satan. The story of the Christian Christian
I know.
tradition that predates me and you
I
talks
know.
about those music and the evil workings that is done through that. Come on now. Why
And
do you want to be connected with that?
because he was actually there. These were the nights where I was crying and begging God to help me. I was begging to the bottom of my heart. I was so
Have
afraid.
you ever
And
seen the story of Job?
I did. Yes.
Oh, can I say something?
Yes.
So yeah, the story of Job. Basically, Satan was patrolling. He was walking around, and he asked God for permission to mess with Job. Job was it like he was an all right guy. He worshipped God. He was a righteous guy. But Satan asked for permission to mess with him, to throw his life out of whack. So basically, with your situation, right? You knowingly or unknowingly are doing wicked things, right? You're inviting these entities into your life because they bring you comfort. But the thing is about Satan is he's a liar and a deceiver at first. So when he sings to you, when he sings you lullabies, he's always asking for a price. There is not once does he give you something for free. There is always something that you have to give up. Your sanity, your money, your children.
No,
Doesn't
I
matter.
did go insane. At that time in my life, I truly went insane. I did not know what was real. I was having weird visions of
Krauts.
yeah, like I would wait for the school bus, and out the corner of my eye, I would see this shimmering light.
Why would you?
Wait, Krauts. Why don't you think it's quite interesting that there's a story and stories that detail these things that happened thousands of years ago in a religious context?
Well, I do find it interesting. I just
Why
don't.
don't you find it more of than just a mere coincidence? Because what it sounds like here is you have a coincidence that becomes a collective bunch of coincidences, and you're calling that in itself another coincidence. Are you not? You just gave me like 5 or 6 different events that occurred regarding the same thing.
Well, so
Like, come
I
on, man.
I would
I know you're
stand.
smarter than that. I
Well,
know you are.
let me finish, and then
I'll
we
let,
can
I'll
get
let you
into that.
finish. I'll let you finish.
Because yeah, I don't tell this story to anyone, no one. All right, and
I appreciate you opening up.
like I would stand at the school bus, waiting for the school bus in my front yard, and I would see this shimmer, this movement in the corner of my eye, and normally it would just all of this stuff would stop, at my front door. I would get out the house and things were good. And then eventually I saw a shimmer, and it would even follow me to school. It was with me everywhere. And I got angry one time. And because I got angry, I said in my head very loudly, I wish this person would just fall. And as soon as I said that, they flew across the fucking room. Like they pissed me off. I left the room. I turned around to go back in because I forgot one of my books. And I just saw them fly across the fucking room. No one was around. No one for at least 20 feet. There was no way this person could have been pushed or thrown.
You got to get away from this.
It's
and demonic. This is so demonic.
Then after that, I started feeling.
Visit a priest.
I did.
An exorcism because
No, I went to every priest. I went to every single priest I could find. Catholics, Pentecostals, Baptists. And you know what they told me? It's all in your head. Don't worry about it.
it's wrong because priests will if no, you have to not only just a priest, you need to look for an exorcist.
No, he doesn't
Priests
need
are
that.
exorcists.
That's not what he needs right now. That's a drastic route. All right, we're talking to someone that holds the beliefs he does. What you need to do is, I'm serious, man. You should really look at Christianity. And like you have people here that talk about 24/7 like me, and like I'm not, because dude, everything you're lining up which is demonic, which is the reasons why Jesus, why God sent his son Jesus to die on the cross to bore our sins, because we get attached to those sayings. And everything you're lining up is just check marking it off the box, man. I appreciate you opening up.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We get the idea. We get the idea.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to get more creeped out.
It got worse after
boy.
this. Like, worse in the sense of it was much more physical. You know,
Oh,
not towards me or other people, but like there was a physical change in my body. You know, my eyes sunk in; they became black around the edges. My veins started to turn kind of a darker color. My skin
That's right.
became pale, you know, and I would be able to walk by people and and basically hear in the back of my head what they're thinking. And
So that's why you're reading a Satanist book earlier.
you know, and I would go up to them and I would say, "Why are you thinking bad things about me? I've never done you anything." And they would say, "Oh, well, I wasn't thinking nothing bad about you. What are you talking about?" And I would tell them word for word, "I wish that fat fuck would just get hit by a car. That's what you were thinking, right?" And the look on their face, that's all I needed. And I used to be able to also, like, with just a wave of my hand, make things happen. Just by speaking a word, make things
It's
happen.
like witch doctor kind of stuff in Africa.
No,
They have these kind of
witchcraft and warlock stuff.
Yeah, like it got to the point where in my head, like I would have this dream every now and again, and it's still clear as day. I was wearing a solid red robe in the middle of an open field in a multi-layered circle. That it was a larger circle that had three circles and a point of a triangle. All right.
Yeah, stop
And-
right now. Quit. Stop.
Why?
Stop. Dude, literally all you're doing is outlining things that that Christianity has been saying is literally terribly evil and connected to child sacrificing.
And there
since
was a
the beginning
giant
of times.
bonfire in the middle of
Yeah,
it.
you just named
know?
three different circles in
So now we see that there is physical suffering for creatures that have no sin, right? And physical death for creatures that have no sin.
Which
animals. Animals.
Animals aren't judged according to the law. They have a different spirit.
But I'm making the point that you've just admitted that before the fall there was no suffering and death, and that there was no evolution, because in evolution theory, there's lots and lots of
What does that have to
death.
do with anything? I'm talking about imparting your sin through genetics.
The point that I'm making is that everything changed when Adam sinned. The entire universe changed, whereby what was
argument.
Experience. You
I
are
didn't make
making
that argument.
You're
I'm not
arguing
making that
there's a
argument.
phil-
You're
there-
alluding
there's a
that I'm making that
philosophy of
argument.
logic
You're
and
no.
science,
I said
completely
that
wrong.
science. You shut up. I said that science uses logic. Irrespective, logic's the same thing. Logic is the emergence
There's a
from
lot of
argument.
instances where
Okay.
science does not use
Let him
logic
finish,
because
please.
logic is
Let
not
him
enough.
hold up. Let him finish, please. Don't do this cutting off business. This is obnoxious. Please.
The reason why, now, you must have mistaken yourself, and you've mistaken me because.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought you said something about slavery. Never mind. I'm out.
I'm just
saying,
like,
you're
saying Niger in replace of nigger.
Can't hear you,
She
baby.
called me a very
Can't hear you,
smart.
baby.
So
Can't
what's
hear
that
what you're
part?
saying.
Very smart old
Good.
lady.
I'm disappointed in you.
I've never
You
heard
know,
you be
Really?
racist or shit.
I'm the
Yeah.
Niger. Well, you know, listen,
Really?
go wash and comb your hair. Go take care of yourself. Go change up your outfit, bitch. Change it up. Do something else. Like you sit in the same spot every day. You smoking meth. You're surrounded by cigarette dust. That's why you're surrounded by like. Come on,
Really?
bro. Like,
Get her.
Did you know that Niger's
That
right
don't bother
next?
me what you're saying. Like it's just insane. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like,
He needs to go to the squirrel store.
like go to the squirrel store.
I've been at this for 4 fucking years, and
Niger.
every fucking like week for like the past 4 years.
I forgot about the squirrel store. I forgot about the squirrel store.
Did you know that Niger is on the border of Chad?
I mean, I almost did too. I had to suck it back up.
Oh my god!
I bet all the Nigers
my
want
beer
to be
out.
Chads.
Dude, I fucking spit beer out all over myself when she said.
I'm fucking dead. I'm gonna fart. Oh my god, I didn't
Oh, dude, I
laugh.
got drool hanging off my lip.
Oh
my god.
Oh my god! I can't believe you shit. You're so fucking.
Do
Shit.
you
You fucking
remember
hurt my
the
feelings.
squirrel store? Only real ones remember the squirrel store.
Dude, I heard
I'm
that
bad.
story. I heard that story in a whole different server.
You don't know about the fucking squirrel store. Fuck me.
That was like a year ago.
I know. It just came to the forefront of my mind.
What a
Is it
reference!
as stupid as I think it is?
It's very dumb.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Oh my god!
Part of rationalism, damn it. All right, like, and this is my point. Like, I'm stressing this point. All right, I'll say this. I'll make this concession that you're right. You know what? I know nothing. Just like Socrates, I know nothing. And you know why? There's always information that's expanding across the horizon. And for you to say to me and try to put me on this sort of like
precisely how old it is. Those ships are going tighter and tighter and
One
tighter.
little mistake. One little mistake in pre.
I want you to look at in your own time, Krauts. It's Romans chapter 6. It's
Okay.
basically the whole chapter. Like, it's, yeah, you have the free will to choose to read it. I'm suggesting this is basically what you have been describing, and this is the solution to set yourself free from that.
All right, so this is a, I guess you could say, very, very loose rendition of what I saw. Can I just can I post it somewhere or DM it to you?
You can post it on a biblical study, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a very, very loose representation because it's kind of hard to get the scale down. You know, because I'd have to actually explain how I saw it because this does not do it justice.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is so biblical study. You said.
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's specialty channels. Look
All right.
at
Is
that.
it high up on the list or
It's
down
like
low?
near where the voice chat is.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, man. There's a lot. I gotta scroll through a lot.
It's okay. You'll find it.
Biblical study. I found it.
Yeah.
All right. I cannot post
Oh
images.
yeah, you have to be a PRNR member.
Yeah. Is there another place that I can?
You can friend me, and then you can send me it, and I can send that to the biblical study.
Yeah. All right. So I just sent you a friend request, and
All right.
yeah. So it's a very, very loose interpretation of the geometric of the shape, but it does not do justice. Nowhere near. The internal circle was much more ornate.
Show you something really cool. Hold on a second. Here, this is off topic, but I just want to show you. I discovered this little treasure here. Look at this. This was my grandma's. Tiny little birdie on the ball. Isn't that awesome?
I can't see anything yet.
Oh, sorry.
I still can't see anything.
Atheist grandma was a great ape.
Is it showing up? Can anybody see it?
Nah.
Shit. It's this tiny little brass birdie on the ball, and I don't know where the fuck it came from. But it looks vintage as fuck. Yeah, I'll take a picture of it and post it in Gaslight.
There we go.
Okay, well, anyway, in terms of logic and science, there's certain things that logic cannot. It's not even in the
boss. You use anything. It's like you breathing right now. Do you know how imperative that is for you to function, to exist right now? You know, if you stop breathing right now, what happens? If you cease to breathe right now, what happens? You cease to exist. You die.
Well, it depends on what you mean.
No. Okay, you know. Listen. If you knew about logic, you would know how important it is, irrespective. Even when you're doing a theory, you're expressing what you're saying. You're writing it down. You're doing denotes. You're using logic because you're coming down to some sort of conclusion. Logically, you're rationalizing. Even when you're writing the words, you're using the law of identification, law of contradiction, law of excluded middle. You're using those eyes of sight every time you do it, to the point that it's almost inherently, intrinsically the case. And this is the problem, man. I can't understand for the life of me how you're so adamant about this, and why do you have to argue for the sake of arguing? I can't understand for the life of me, man. When I talk about logic, I'm talking about in those terms, and they are consistent enough. To the point that it's already self-evident, to the point I don't even need to talk about it, to the point why should I even argue for it? It is the case. You use logic. I can't understand why
is an
you need to argue against it. Why? And logic, can I keep in mind, irrespective, it is the case. You use it. I'm not appealing to religion, whatever. A religious person, a theist, a deist, whatever you want to be, you still use logic, man. And guess what? It's always going to be from the beginning you exist to the end when you cease to exist.
But
right to the point of your last breath. Right?
Both science and logic are gay and lame.
P Mars, you like throwing screws into engine bays, don't you?
So that's it, man. We're in this long journey together, and we're using logic, man. Hooray! Because we didn't use logic.
It's not it. The discussion seriously is not over. There's certain things that logic can. There's certain physiological.
Again, I said irrespective.
Not over yet, man.
Science is a branch of logic.
I'm not
It's
an
an
expert
epistemology.
on
It's
all
a branch
things
of
science,
logic.
but I basically know.
It's mind dependent,
philosophy.
man.
My
It's
bad.
mind dependent.
My
It's
bad,
mind dependent,
philosophy.
man.
Certain physiological processes that logic cannot explain. The only way that we know them is because they have.
My God.
There's no logical way of verifying, like, how do I explain it? There's no logical way to test it in terms of, like, could it be any different? Like, yeah, it can, but abnormally, or in a pathogenic or in like a disease type manner. But in terms of physiological processes, there's no good reason for why.
Explain it using an analogy to a penis.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Logic is
expert
fundamental in science. I think you're confusing logic with falsifiability. So in science, they say that no theory can be proven, but what we can do is subscribe to theories based on falsifiability, or when we cannot reproduce the results of an experiment repeatedly. And that's how we subscribe to theory. But logic is fundamental to science because it's used first to formulate a theory. Second, logic is used within falsifiability or non-reproducible experimentation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and neuro as well. There's applied logicism as well. Different forms of it are applied, and this is the problem with me. It's like, can't for the life of me, man. Like, boss, so you're intelligent, man. You have so much going for you. I don't understand why you have to contest against this. Why? What is the point?
I mean, as I have explained before, there is no logic. There's no
It's lame.
analytical.
Are you trolling?
Oh my God. No, I'm not.
Because I can't believe. No,
There's
I
no
can't believe why.
analytical way to logically outline why certain
He's never
physiological
been
things.
wrong.
I think this kid's sucking us in. I think he's a troll.
No, I think he's
I
just.
can't believe someone to be this far off. Like, really, man. Like,
This feels like a long con.
I can explain logic to a 5-year-old, they'd get it.
Bro, I don't know.
Man, logic. Listen. That's the whole point of logic, Bowser. That's
We
the whole
must
point.
pit him against Bandy.
No, Bowser. That's the whole we failed to realize. When you mentioned about, well, I've done how many classes, irrespective, doesn't matter when we're talking about logic. I've done this stuff, doesn't matter we're talking about logic, but I've done has no relation whatsoever. You could be the dumbest person in the world. Doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if you're the smartest man, your smartest ant. It doesn't matter if you're the smartest ant or the dumbest ant. You still use logic because, in a matter of fact, that's what it is, right? You still use it.
Dude,
okay?
I'm
There's
not.
no relation.
I use logic. Are you? Have you been listening to me this entire time? I don't deny that I or you or like human beings use logic. Okay.
Okay. The why do you make this argument?
argument.
What's your
My
whole point then?
that certain you're not understanding like the crux of my point. There are certain physiological processes that are not logically analyzed or able to be analyzed logically.
Like
That's
what?
it.
Like what?
Like cancer, like certain metabolisms, like certain catalytic events that happen with enzymes and
Just
hormones.
one. Just let's go with one. What about it we can't scientifically understand about cancer? What's it?
Well, no, he's saying logically. You can't apply logic to cancer.
Yeah, what can we apply logic
You
to?
can't apply logic to it because
Of course you can. Logic
We
is-
understand what cancer is.
Logic is used-
We
wait a minute,
identify
wait a
cancer.
minute, Wait a minute. Logic is fundamental to any diagnosis or prognosis. You realize that, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about prognosis. We're not talking about like how logically we know that you have
And
cancer.
this is why I'm asking, like, what specifically? Do you not understand
The
how cancer
diagnosis is
forms?
Without a
How it-
diagnosis, you will never know
Bro,
that you have cancer.
literally just identifying it and calling it cancer is using logic.
That is using logic. I'm talking about the physiological process itself occurring.
It's a starting point.
There's no
So here's the
logic
thing. I'm
based-
trying to get this goalpost hammered in here. What
There's no
aspect?
goalpost. Dude,
Hold
there's
on,
no
hold on, hold on,
specific
hold on,
goalpost.
hold on. When I'm talking, you listen. Okay. What I'm gonna try to figure out is what is it about cancer, like how it forms, how it metastasizes. Like, what about cancer do we not? What is? Give me one thing that we don't apply logic to. Like, what behavior of cancer are we not able to analyze using logic?
There's multiple ways where you can't use logic to analyze
One.
cancer. Why does the cell do it? Why do the cells reproduce abnormally, just progressively?
Acquired mutations. Acquired mutations.
We can give you answers on that. So do you have another one?
No, tell me the answer for it, because like we have had long
cells. Hold on, I'll tell you. Then stop talking. Here, I'll tell you. Hold on.
Love to
Stop
hear what
talking.
you wanted to say about
Shut
this.
the
I
fuck
can't do it.
up. When I am talking, please don't make me use the mute button because that makes me cranky. When I'm talking, you shut up. Okay. Cells reproduce. That's what they do. When a cell picks up some bad data or it's degraded or there's environmental cancers that you can get from toxins.
To be stronger than him. That's all, because think about it. A father always wants their children to be better than them, correct? And if God is a loving father,
there's so many different types. Carcinoma, we've indexed, we've done DNA sequencing on at least 300 different forms of cancers. So if you want to know why cancers reproduce and spread, that's because cells reproduce. That's how they work. And then when you fuck around with the coding in the cells, they do wacky
Okay,
things.
so why are the cells coding being altered by an external source?
Well, I told you there's genetic defect. Okay.
Why is there
there's a genetic that can happen due to sperm or egg damage or some heritable disease.
Egg damage?
Hold on.
You're literally saying
Hold
why
on.
is something that's outside affected by something else outside? That's such a redundant question.
No,
bro.
because this
Yeah,
goes into
hold on.
there not being
Hold
a
on.
logical
Hold on.
reason for why
There's
certain
logic
normal
there.
logical
Hold
problems
on.
or even processes,
Hold
normal
on.
processes
All right,
happen.
now I'm gonna get out my fucking mute button because you're not fucking listening to me. I
Bro,
fucking
you're literally
hate it.
fucking talking over me as soon as I start talking. Don't bitch.
No. I was giving you an explanation, and then what you do